Facebook already killed it. I'm just going to try sharing the YouTube stream.
Good evening, friends. It's Friday, which means it's time once again for another educational episode of Hobbservations on Roads to Liberty, part of the Think Liberty Network. That's liberty.com for all of your freedom posting needs. Think-liberty.com, or head on over to liberty.com for some freedom swag. Go ahead and throw some shekels our way. We would very much appreciate it. Tonight, we are talking next level rifle necromancy with a man who is trying to bring back to life what is quite possibly the most anticipated disappointment in the firearms industry of the last 20 years. Dana from Templar Precision. Sir, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Of course, I'm talking about the Magpul Bushmaster Remington ACR, a gun which, by every single metric on paper, should have taken the firearms industry by storm. When I first saw anything about it in the gun press, it blew me away. The features on it are astounding. The first one that I ever got my hands on, I said, this thing should be going places, price notwithstanding. And unfortunately, the Freedom Group decided that they were going to snatch that thing up and then just sit on it and not do a damn thing with it. And the gun kind of withered on the vine and died, which is very unfortunate for the gun buying public. But our misfortune is our guests' benefit, I guess, because now you're out there not only making the parts for the ACR that Bushmaster Remington should have been making from the get-go, but you've also made a few design improvements. But shut up, and I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you decided to do it.
Well, it's kind of I think the ACR is kind of a sad story. The ACR had a lot of potential from the beginning. Remington, they had it and they did their stuff with it. They did a lot that we didn't see too. I mean, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one too, because I do know a little bit about the behind the scenes stuff. But as far as me, I believe it or not, I'm a full-time mailman. So that's why I'm working 2 full-time jobs right now. It's why contact with me is sometimes difficult, but a little bit more about it. Full-time doing that. And then I 8-year Army veteran, did both National Guard and reserves. So that's pretty cool. I got some good training and, weapons handling skills from that, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much the beginnings of that. Started Templar, honestly, because back in 2000, I don't know, like 14, I believe, maybe it's 15. Post office had a big restructuring thing going on, and basically we were making pretty good money. I was pulling, let's just say about $2,000 every 2 weeks after taxes, and they did a big restructuring thing, and all the part-time people lost their jobs and got rehired in. I was making about $750 every 2 weeks with the same amount of hours, so lost everything, absolutely everything. And it's not a pity story or anything like that. That's life. It happens. You drive on. So I started building ACR stuff with a little $700 Grizzly mill just to make ends meet, try not to lose everything. And after a while, I built parts here and there. Moved on from bolts and lightweight carriers. Did some charging handles that fold. And I did this all, mind you, on the cheapo mill. Well, after a while, I got to the point where things just kept expanding. And, about 2017-ish, I got my first CNC mill and broke a lot of stuff, broke a lot of tools, a lot. Mind you, I have no machinist background whatsoever. I had to teach myself everything via YouTube and hunting down stuff. I made friends with some engineers and a few machinists, so they gave me a few heads ups on some stuff. But realistically speaking, I just one step at a time. And I started making parts and components. Started with trunnions on the machine. They were somewhat simple-ish, but I mean, it's a hobby mill, so you're not going to be able to crack out 1,000 parts in a few hours. You're literally cracking out one every 3-4 hours or whatever. And over the years, I started getting more contacts with the firearm industry. With Remington and a few people up there, made some pretty good friends. And I didn't realize that a couple of the friends I made were the head of the ACR program. So, I trolled them, and that's kind of how I got to where I was. Is I let them know that there's a lot of people out there who want the stuff that they've been developing behind the scenes, which they knew, but getting the approval to make it's another thing. But over time, I did do a 300 blackout conversion. I can't take all the credit for it because Trent over at Unity was actually the first one to do a 300 blackout ACR. I just pretty much went from his design and then furthered it beyond that. But I showed Remington that I did that, and after that, they wanted to start working with me because they realized I wasn't just joking around. I really wanted to see improvements done, and I was there all the way up to the end when I knew a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. But yeah, that's that's kind of where we got up to now. You know, basically I went from 1 hobby mill to 2 to 3 to 4. And I was running all 4 machines at one point just to get lowers out as fast as possible. And recently I just purchased my first industrial mill. So now it can outrun all 4 of them by itself, which is actually really good for production. But, you know, one step at a time. I've only had it for about 2 months and I've already cracked out almost 100 ACR lowers.
That is impressive. I got to say, you know, I am a CNC machinist too, but I went to school. I used my GI Bill to do all that stuff. And yeah, when you're just getting started on stuff like that, especially if you're teaching yourself, you will break tooling. It's
yeah. Oh man, I had one mistake with the new mill, and it was a $1,400 mistake.
Yeah,
it hurt. I mean, that was like 4 weeks ago, and I'm still recovering. But you know, you live and you learn. But
yeah, that is how it is. You know, it's one thing to break an end mill. It's another thing to like crash into a vise or your table. Or
I don't know how I didn't break anything beyond the 7 end mills. I broke it ripped the part out of the vise. Somehow the orange vices were still saved. My tool setter was sitting right there and it didn't get hit. And I'm like, thank the Lord, this was almost terrible.
Oh yeah, that would have been a very, very, very expensive
man
mistake. But
you know,
I'm glad. I'm glad that everything eventually is working out for you in the end, because yeah, there does seem to be this sort of a paradox in the gun buying community, where you hear a lot of clamor for like, I want to see the ACR go someplace, for example, or back when Microtech, the knife company, had MSAR when they were making an AUG clone, because Steyr wasn't bringing AUGs. You know, people were like, "Oh, we need to get more of these on the market." You know, but starting up something like that is a very, very expensive process. So once these companies, you know, like you or like Microtech or whatever, you know, they get these products up out the door and they're like, you know, $2,000, $2,500, and then nobody buys them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what does this do that my AR-15 can't? And it's like, I don't know, be fucking different just for the sake of being different, you know? And
exactly.
yeah, and you know, the thing is that when you are trying to break out of a mold, especially one that is as entrenched as the AR-15 Glock 19 paradigm is in this country, you're going to have startup costs, you're going to have pushback, you're going to have people that just, you know, they want to stick with what they know because people are boring creatures of habit. And that works against the type of variety that they say that they want, but they're not willing to invest the startup capital in order to actually get things off the ground. And then we're stuck with what I call the AR-15 Schrodinger's gun, because it is simultaneously possessed with a near infinite degree of variance while also being the most boring fucking thing on the market right now, because they're everywhere, right? Glad that we've got people like you that are working to resurrect, you know, with the rifle necromancy, to resurrect these great designs and should have been, were it not for corporate bean counters shitting all over the hopes and dreams.
Yeah, you know, the AR is a great rifle. It's absolutely awesome, but I'm a little guy. You know, I started my company with literally no money, probably a negative bank account, to be completely honest. But, you know, I can't throw a rock without hitting a couple different AR manufacturers, and I'm being dead serious. One of my really good buddies lives 3 minutes from me, and he has a very successful AR-15 manufacturing plant. Well, it's a plant now. It started in his garage and moved up. And I mean, you know, there's a lot of people making ARs, a lot of good stuff coming from that market, but I can't compete with that. You know, I've got 1 mil. How many does any of these major companies have? 50, 100? How many lathes, you know? Maybe it's only 10, 20, but that's still 10 times the production I have, plus the capital and employees. That's actually probably the biggest one right there.
Yeah. Overhead is a bastard, and that again, it's you say you can't compete in that market space because there's just so many out there. But then again, paradoxically, you are jumping into the market with a gun that already kind of has a high price to entry. So you got to find that kind of that balancing act
Oh
of,
yeah.
how much do I charge and how much are people willing to pay over the cost of a rifle that's already expensive to begin with.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of the big killer is a lot of people don't, they think that let's just say a lower receiver, for instance, AR lowers are anywhere on the market. You can go anywhere from like, $50 for an 80%er all the way out to what, like $1,000 for an HK 416 lower or Knights Armament or anything like that. But the killer is they've got massive amounts of production. The first lowers I did, if you were to do an actual cost analysis on them, I was actually taking a pretty decent loss on every lower I made. I was still making a profit, but hourly, I was not making near what a machine shop would.
Yeah.
Most machine shops labor rates around here is about $70 an hour minimum. And, a lower receiver for me was taking 8 hours per lower. And that's Cerakote wire EDM cutting, which was, almost $100 for that. And then the block of aluminum, which has gone up through the roof astronomically this year. I could make 50, 100 lowers or whatever it was. It was just, do I have 50 to 100 hours per, run? I don't have the time for that, especially, run the full-time job. That's why I kind of had to keep moving forward. And I kind of briefly texted you about it, but 2020 was pretty bad. I mean, 2020 was 2020. That and most people don't realize, since I did work with Remington, I had a heads up on what was coming before it happened with the bankruptcy. I knew all of that was coming. I mean, it was August and I was already preparing my company to survive. And, having a low, I didn't make a whole lot of money. I made decent money, but when you're talking, I need hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars to hold company up. That's, getting ready to go down like that. Just a parts stash and everything. There's just no way I could even brace for that. And then having all the part shortages, it dropped me so far behind, which I've recovered recently, but it took pretty much until about a week ago for me to recover. And it was tough.
Yeah. Let's backtrack a little bit. So you said that you kind of got in with some of the cats over at Remington, and you said that you were kind of got their attention. So don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't shitpost your way to success.
Oh, I'm literally the definition of that one. I mean, if you really, really get into it and you can Facebook stalk like a champ, you probably can find I don't know, they probably wiped those pages, but you can find me on there being like, hey, when are you guys going to do this? I'd like a Remington ACR, and then I would list, I'd put a picture up of my 300 blackout Remington clone that had a magnesium rail and, all these other goofy stuff. And most of it that I did. And it's hilarious because that was kind of like my thing. Actually, even more funny is towards the very end when I really did possess real Remington defense stuff. I would go joke with the engineers over at Bushmaster, and then I go over and troll Remington Defense and be like, hey guys, when's this coming out? Oh, that's military only. I was like, I know, I have one. I have like 4 of them now.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you don't. And I show a picture. They're like, oh, I hate you so much, dude.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's great. That is great. Yeah. I do that to quite a bit of a lesser extent to FN and to standard manufacturing, because standard manufacturing, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, they announced the SKO bullpup shotgun. That's still nowhere to be seen. So every time they post something, I'm just like, hey, this churched up color case hardened 1911 looks nice, but what about that SKO bullpup? Hey, we don't need a zombie splatter Cerakote job on the DP12. We need the SKO bullpup. Nobody needs another single action army. Get us the SKO bullpup. And so far, I'm surprised they haven't blocked me yet, because I do that a lot.
Oh man, and I can't say a word about getting behind on projects. I mean, I told you I started the AK project and 2020 happened. I had literally, right here, both prototypes. This is the
Nice.
AK one that was actually on display at the NRA show, the last one that was actually in existence. And this is one of the first 5.56 lowers. They were actually built at the same time. The AK uses most of the same geometry as the 5.56 one minus the magwell. So, I dropped the 5.56 one just to recoup the money back quickly because I could sell 100 5.56 ones for 2 or 3 AK lowers. Plus, you need a barrel and a bolt. So, I actually revised those 5.56 lowers probably about 75 to 80 times. About every time I run one, the next one is probably changed from the one before. And it's more just, faster machining 9 times out of 10, but there was some fitting stuff I did with fitting, and the trigger boxes make them come out a little bit cleaner. But the AK ones are now getting all those revisions. I actually have a side-by-side picture. I'm debating on posting it or not, showing how bare the AK one is versus the new modern lightweight lowers, which is the last lower I've actually developed. But yeah, no, it's just, I totally get being behind on the development. I hate making announcements on parts, because then you get 100 people like, hey, I want one of those, and 3 of them buy, or maybe 10, or maybe 20, maybe 100. I don't know.
Yeah, going back to that paradox of people making a whole lot of noise, and then when it's time for the rubber to meet the road, they ghost out. Bye. Sorry, I'm broke. You should have had it a month ago, and it's like, I didn't even know there was a market for it a month ago. You son of bitches.
Dude, there was a few times that I got burned pretty bad on that. And I'm not mad at anybody. I spend money on stupid stuff all the time, so I can be the first to say, I'm probably gonna have to Chick-fil-A and spending like half my paycheck tomorrow just because it's delicious. But and I'm not endorsed by them. I'm just gonna let them know. But the thing is like, there's just learning all the stuff from nothing that gun manufacturers and even salespeople just know. I mean, you could put a product out and 1,000 people want it and 10 people buy it or whatever. That's just common knowledge. Everybody knows the formula for it. And it's just, and what time of the year is it? That's a big deal too. Sales are slower right now. It's spring. Everybody spent all their tax returns.
Yep.
And I'm going to use that to catapult my job production all the way to the the next level as much as I can. Get inventory for, next whatever's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's speaking of inventory and the parts that you've made and the parts that you've developed, you, if I'm not mistaken, are fairly close to being able to make damn near every single part for an ACR, right? Like, what are you not doing right now?
So, if I'm not making it now, I probably already have it reverse engineered on my computer. I'm trying, my goal right now is trying to get through the lower batch, because what would happen is I'll put a production run in. I pick and choose what jobs I want to do, just because, if I have a lot of people asking for turn-ins, I'll do turn-ins real quick, or lowers or handguards or whatever. But usually I'll do a run of, we'll say like 25. I'll sell 28. And I'll be like, really? I've got to immediately start another run up. The last run of 5.56 lowers I did, I literally pulled the last one out of my mill and it was already sold. And then 3 other people paid that night for more. And it was like, I back ordered instantly, and I'm literally not even done with this batch. And it sucked, because that was a huge run. That took me almost 2 weeks of vacation burn off, and probably 16-hour days every day. And what a lot of people probably don't know is I'm usually working, between my 2 jobs, I'm usually 18 hours a day. And a lot of that's going into the ACR. A lot of that's going into putting mail in people's boxes, or Amazon at this point in life. But, I get off work. I pretty much say hi to my wife, and then, give her a hug, kiss, and say, I'll see you in a few hours. Go out and go burn off as much aluminum as I can. And maybe if I'm really lucky, I get to go shoot a gun. Don't ever start a gun business for anybody out there who's thinking about it, because you'll never shoot again. It's horrible. But, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I get a few days where I can go out and just go blast, but yesterday was the first day I've seriously shot since April of last year, where I've actually went out and did some range stuff. It's just, I kind of hunkered down like everybody else did. I can't afford to shoot $3 a round. It's just, it's kind of different. But yeah, that's kind of how that runs on, production runs and such like that. I probably trailed off and went like somewhere completely different. But no, like I said, anytime I'll schedule out a production run, a lot of times I've been selling out before I even get to the end of it. That's why this one's just going to be a huge one. Plus, this one's also going to a international distributor that I've, made a contact with. So I'm going to release more information as I get further into the order, but I've been talking with them for the last several weeks, actually at this point, last few months. That's, I don't like to spill the beans on a whole lot of stuff until I have a lot of concrete information, because last time I did that, I had 7.62 by 3.9 lower. It took a year longer than it was supposed to. So.
Yeah, that's like you were saying, shoot $3 around. I reckon that's just about as much incentive as you need to develop things like a 7.62 by 39 lower, so that you can shoot that cheap steel cased stuff.
Oh man, that's actually every time I look at the file on my computer, I always kind of like perk up. I'm like, that's really awesome. I can't wait until one of those is out. And I'm like, I'm the guy making those. But the cool part is, I did actually buy a bunch of ammo with the, the first few sales, paid for material, paid for magazines, because, I had to buy a whole bunch of different mags. And then I bought a bunch of ammo, a couple conversion kits and stuff like that. This is all stuff I need on hand, because I got to make sure that the conversion kit will work with the lower. Mm-hmm. And that's why I've kind of stopped doing AK builds completely, is because I don't want to touch them. And then, the problem I come into is I'll build a gun, and 6 months later, I'll build a second one and I won't even remember the specs. So I have to write everything down. But if there's something special about, how that build went, like something, this gas block was loose, so I had to go bigger on the gas port, or this gas block was tight, or too far, or whatever the issue is, I want to have all those notes. And I do keep really good notes at this point when I get to the range, because of stuff like that, because I've had, I've probably done 100 to 200 conversions at this point, maybe more. I don't know. Most of them are 10.5-inch 5.56s, but I've done 6.8, 6.5 Grendel, 7.62 by 3.9. I'm working on a 9mm by 9 by 39. They're all really sweet setups. It's just, every conversion kit that I build for me is still $700-800, and that's a real price. I can only keep a few of those around without breaking my bank account.
Yeah, they're kind of like children, right? You want to keep them all. You want to keep them all, but eventually you have to kick them out of the nest.
Yeah, and it's sad when I let one of my personal builds go, because when I come up to a build, I don't spare anything on it, because a lot of times they're going to the range with me. And if I have a 4 MOA rifle and I go blast it and I can't hit the broadside of a barn, people look at you like you're dumb. And I get enough of that anyway. So, I'm running generally at this point, I'm running, ballistic advantage barrels, and, I need the sub MOA. And there's a few other companies I want to work with in the future. It's just, I've made contacts with them at SHOT Show, and they seem like really awesome dudes. I think, just a name drop on this one, but the guys over at Roscoe, those guys were awesome. I've talked to them briefly over at SHOT Show back when it existed. And, I think I want to move forward on that stuff, but it's just recovering from last year is still kind of a big deal.
Yeah, everybody felt last year pretty darn heavily, and yeah,
I don't.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't think a lot of people realize, but if you're not in the gun industry, then you probably don't realize this, but most of the development that happens is on years that are not 2020. I think if you had SHOT Show this year, it would have been identical to last year. They probably would have used the exact same rifles and have been like, this one, there was almost no development on any project. Most of ours was trying to get springs in stock because, some other company bought them all out, and we couldn't even produce a rifle, or, then there was probably a decent amount of really good drops, but for the most part, everybody was just in hunker down mode last year. Just make as much as you can and make it to the end.
Yeah. Sales were brisk, to say the least, with the civil unrest and everything that went on last year. I think that you're right. I think that most companies out there, aside from the people that are developing wacky, weird Wunderwaffens for the .gov contracts, most of these people are, rather than dumping dollars into development R&D costs, are instead, they had the idea of just crank out what we already do well, because it's going to sell.
Oh,
And
exactly. And
yeah,
that's all you can do. I mean, let's just put it in realistic numbers. You want to drop $1 million in the research and development, or do you want to build 500,000 AR-15s? I
yeah,
mean, you just my friend that I was talking about earlier, he was actually really, really ahead of the game. I give him props because he came out of the blue and he started his company and he was buying, parts from certain companies, building his ARs, and they're very good ARs. But as time went on, he started sourcing up the parts and the companies to make his own stuff. So when everybody else was missing takedown pin springs or detents or whatever, he already had contacts for local. And he ended up, when everybody else started running out of parts, he flooded the market with his own. I
yep,
really don't think he ran out for more than a week at most.
yep.
He just kept cracking it out, and it was kind of crazy watching him expand. I think he literally tripled his entire, highest grossing year last year.
Yeah, a lot of companies did that, and a lot of companies are still back ordered out the wazoo. I know, like right down the street from me is Hornady, and my brother works there, and he told me that they could stop taking orders now, and that it would take them 2.5 years at current capacity to fill the back orders that they have.
Oh yeah, easy. And
And
that's
yeah, they just went
yeah,
through a big expansion uh, last year. So at current capacity is quite a bit higher than it was when I worked there a few years ago.
hmm
So yeah, it's the ammo situation is crazy. The gun situation, not so much, but still pretty
yeah.
nuts.
I think the gun side of it was kind of. I mean, I got hit with some pretty awesome orders. And that's that. But I think the ammo side, they just basically just completely annihilated the whole market. Just they're back ordered years.
Hmm.
Most gun manufacturers are back ordered months.
Yeah,
With the exception of I think Noveski was pretty high up there because they just make some awesome products. But
yeah,
and that's a panic. But I mean, most of the realistic panics that we've ever had were what, like 3-4 months. That was like 15 months in a row of just back to back getting hammered.
yeah.
Um,
Terrible, awful.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
it's a bad broke and searching for something cool.
Oh man, that's the definition of my business.
so
Um,
so let's talk about some of these cool builds that you've done. You mentioned 9x39, which I have known existed for, well, let's see, probably about 15 years now. I've known that it's existed. It just started coming into the United States, what, 2 years ago. Wolf
yep.
started bringing the 300 blackout for men, and so far here in the U.S., the only people that I've seen do anything with it, I've seen a couple companies make ARs, big fucking deal. Um,
hmm
Krebs Customs does an AK in 9x39, and you say you've done an ACR in 9x39. So what spurred that? Was that something you did for somebody else, or was that a for me thing?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I am not an AK guy. I will be the first one to tell anybody and everybody I don't know anything about AKs. I know they load mag, pull charging handle back, boom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I've never really got into AKs. I've always been an AR guy until I got my ACR, and then now it's just pretty much that. And I've shot multiple other platforms, HK 416, Scars. And I own an SBR MCX and SL8 G36 clone. I've fired a lot of nice rifles, but I always come back to the ACR. But as far as the 9x39, one of my customers kind of mentioned he got really big into the AK builds because I do have functional prototypes. Literally, I've shot them, decent amount. It's just I want to get into the AK and get into the AK. Like, I don't want to just half-ass it, step in and be like, what, here's this, and then come back 6 months later and be like, why didn't I go this way and just make it better?
Hmm.
And that's why the delays are coming, because I'm not going to release a half-ass product. I just That's not me. I'm going to go balls to the walls when I step in. And I've started going through the design, revising it. And as far as the 9x39 itself, the ACR doesn't like calibers that have low pressure. 300 blackout, the reason why I beat Remington to the 300 blackout punch on the ACR was because I figured, with Trent's setup, I figured out, the optimal gas port, and a really good setup that just worked consistently. I ended up actually building my own gas block for the ACR, and I used factory pistons from Remington, and it worked pretty well. And the thing with the 9x39 was there's no real supersonic version of it. It's all subs, but it's all really low pressure. So I do have a functional 9x39. It just hates life. I've tried different bolt weights, and I've messed around with it, but I don't want to spend a lot of time screwing around with the 9x39 and blow off all my ammo. But now that Remington, shut shop up, I'm stuck making my own gas system. So I'm going to make my own optimized gas system because their approach to it worked really well, actually very well. I like how they did it, but I think that, from my experience, there's a few things I'd like to change on it to make it work for me. And by for me, I mean, I want it to work more for, multitude of setups. And I'm not saying that theirs doesn't. It's just, two different ways to get to the same ending. I want a functional 300 blackout, and I want to be able to use that same gas system on any pistol length build. And I want to, I've got a pretty decent list on the build aspect of it, but I will say that 9x39 is a pretty sweet caliber. I've got probably 25 rounds through it, but most of it's bolt gun stuff. It's just, it would possibly, I even tried running different suppressors and everything, just maximizing the back pressure. The gas port on a 9x39 is already like beyond the size of a gas tube on an AR-15, which actually kind of caught me off guard. So, I mean, I can't really open the gas port anymore without, it going to like 150 or 170 or some crap. Cause I think it's like 130, 136 on the barrel I used, which if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to check, but I think it's a KAK barrel, like CAC.
Yeah.
It was one of the first ones. I was actually, when the 9x39 came in, I was one of the first ones on board to buy a few not mags, but a few boxes of ammo. So I probably have more 9x39 than I do 45, which is really weird. In my defense, I don't own a 45 anymore. So,
hey, I have a huge 40 millimeter ammo can that is full of 5.45 by 39 7N6, and I don't have a rifle that shoots it either. So it's just one of those things that if you see a good deal on it, you gotta snap it up.
You got to do it. I mean, it's trading stock later on, if nothing else.
Especially
and
that
it's
7N6. That stuff ain't being brought in anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty rare. And it's funny you mentioned 5.45 because that's another one I'm working on. I already have the mags. I can get the ammo. Probably not the N6 or whatever it is. But I'm gonna go through and I want to make one setup that just rolls them all. I don't want people to go through and buy 50 different lowers for different things. I want them to be, like in the case of the AK lower, I want it to be all of the calibers in one. You just swap out an insert or something. And if I can get there, awesome. I don't know if I can or not. I'm looking at the CAD file now. And I mean, it looks pretty good from what I'm seeing. It's just figuring out, what works and what doesn't work. Because at least with 5.56, all I have to do is look at a blueprint and be like, here, cut the mag well to this. There you go. We're done.
Yeah.
With the 7.62 by 3.9, you could take 10 different mags and get 50 different measurements. It's literally that much of a variance. They're all close, but the ACR having that small bolt head doesn't do me any favors. An AK has a much larger, the pickup lugs are, I think that's their technical term, but they're a little bit larger and they can get a little bit more meat on them. Whereas the ACR doesn't have that luxury. It has a 5.56 bolt that's opened up like a AR-15.
Yeah. I was gonna say that is from what I've heard of other guns that are like the Stoner Johnson multi-lug design being opened up to accept a 7.62 by 39 has been one of the key limitations of those conversions. Also, notwithstanding the goofy feed geometry that those
Oh yeah.
straight AR mags that then curve out at a 90-degree angle to accommodate the case taper on the 7.62 by 39. Those are just trash piles. But opening up the bolt face to accept that larger case head diameter is one of the limitations. On 7.62 by 39, it's not that big of a deal. Bumping up to things like 6.5 Grendel, or like you and I were talking about in the chat, the 6mm arc. That is a 7.62 by 39 case. Cartridge for both of those is 7.62 by 39, but you're also pushing higher pressures now with those hot rod cartridges.
And it's funny. Believe it or not, Grendel runs amazing in the ACR. I've shot full auto and 7.60 by 39 with those goofy mags, and I've not had a whole bunch of issues with them. Actually, surprisingly, I've not really had any issues outside of light primer strikes once out of every 100 rounds or whatever. But 6.5 Grendel, my longest shot with an ACR was out to well past 1,000. I think the number was 1,300 to 1,500. I don't even know the real distance. It was just a long shot. And it was well beyond 13 because my drone said it was right around 13, and the snipers with me were clocking it further than that. So, and they were real snipers, like Army, that was their job.
Yep.
So, I trust their judgment a little bit better than mine because they did it for a living. But, Grendel runs great. I love Grendel in the ACR. If it was cheaper, I'd probably run a Grendel as my primary. It's just,
right.
It shoots nice. You have a really good bullet trajectory, and you can make hits out to 1,000 really well. I mean, it's not hard.
Yeah. Now, I was talking more for the parts wear, parts breakage, as far as the lugs on those multi-lug bolts being opened up that far is probably not that great for parts longevity.
I'm not going to say anything to that because as of this point, we all know where I'm going with this, and the moment I say it, something's going to happen opposite of what I'm going to say. But let's just say my ACRs have done very well so far.
Yeah, you're not going to want to poke the Murphy bear, are you?
I just got out of 2020. I'm not going back, man.
There we go. That's probably as good of an answer as we can expect. Excuse me.
Oh, you're good.
So, what's next? AK mag conversions. The idea of a universal AK mag, like you said, like swap out an insert or whatever to kind of make up the differences between a 7.62 by 39 and a 5.45 or a 5.56 AK mag or whatever. That's awesome. Don't overextend yourself to be like a jack of all trades and then just like shit, whatever. But other than that, which if you think about the kind of the trends and everything of the U.S. gun market, that is obvious. If you have a gun in 5.56, obviously you're probably going to do something in the old Ruski calibers or whatever. So other than the obvious stuff like that, what's next for you? Like, you have anything that's maybe not so obvious, not so expected, like some crazy shit that you got cooking up in your head?
Well, I mean, I can't explain a few of the things that I've got on the back burner. And a lot of the stuff hasn't even been drawn up yet. For instance, I want to get away from buying gas systems and scrapping them off barrels and using them on new ones. It's not cost effective. I make little to no money on a barrel conversion outside of my fee that I charge for the conversion itself. I think I might lose like $3 every time I buy a barrel. Because I don't get wholesale account anymore. I have to pay what you pay or what anybody pays. And it's what it is. But when I'm buying 10 or 20 parts versus, Joe Schmo's going to buy one a year, I'll buy 20 in a month, which that's an exaggerated number. I could buy 3 this month. I could buy 10 next month. But I want to go through the whole platform from beginning to end. And I want to basically just make it my own. I don't want to go through and, step on anybody's toes at the same time. So I'm not touching receivers, upper receivers, because, Magpul controls that. That's their baby. And I'm not, I don't want to make them mad. I got a lot of friends up there too. Um, and by a lot of friends, I mean like a couple really decent, high up dudes that, they know what I'm doing. Then they know that, I'm just trying to basically further their system.
Yeah.
But the big things right now, my number one focus at this point in life is getting the machine run, which it might be running now. But it's keeping it running, getting everything up to stock inventory levels where I want them, where I can go breathe for 10 minutes and then come back. But I want to have inventory of parts. I want to be able to get an order, throw it in a Ziploc bag, wrap it up, put some packaging stuff on it, get it boxed up, get it out. That way people can get their stuff. I hate having back ordered parts. It's just unfortunate part of being a one-man army. So initially my first steps are I'm going to go through, I'm doing lower receivers for the 5.56. The 6.8s are coming up next, which I have a lower receiver that uses the PMAG, 6.8 PMAG. And it's a really sweet setup. It's one of the few, rifles out there that use that mag. LWRC obviously does it, and there's probably a few other ones that do too. But I kind of want to jump in there because I know there's a lot of people that are pretty hardcore 6.8 guys, and maybe gals too. I don't know, but the thing is I want everybody to have what they want. When it's all said and done, I want people to build the rifle they want. I don't care if you're running my parts, RPM, Virtus, anybody's. When it's all said and done, it's your rifle. You build it how you want it, and that's kind of what I want for everybody. Is you want to run my stuff, run my stuff. You want to run my gas system or my handguard or somebody else's, I don't care. Run what makes you a better shooter.
Yeah, that is probably the number one appeal, and why the ACR was such a disappointment was the degree of modularity that gun had built into it. They ended up making this hyper modular design, and then they ended up coming out with no parts to take advantage of that modularity. Same thing with the FN Scar. The only difference is that FN actually did develop caliber conversions and magazine conversions and all this other cool Gucci shit. It's just you got to have a .gov in your email address in order to get it, which is stupid.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody thinks that, the ACR and the SCAR are like direct competitors. And reality, they were both released at the same time. I mean, the SCAR was a little bit before it, but I almost bought a SCAR instead of the ACR. I don't have anything against SCARs. I mean, I think there's some improvement definitely can be done to them, but it looks like third parties totally wiping that one off the map. There's some seriously awesome SCAR accessories out there. And but yeah, it's just when it's all said and done, I don't care what rifle people pick. I want them to be good with it. I don't want people being a liability.
Yeah,
that's just kind of how I see it. Like, get familiar with your stuff. You can run one of my rifles, you can run a professionally built SCAR, or you can run a KRG. I don't care. Just be good with it. That's my big thing. What works for me doesn't work for you, or vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. You're echoing the great flannel father, Plaid Daddy, Garen out there.
The fact that he posted that video, I about lost it when he was like, "This is actually a good rifle." I'm like, I've been saying it for years.
Yeah.
And finally somebody listened.
Yeah, it's not just for video games anymore. And the fact that he came out with that video like right before you and me got together, it's like this the synchronicity and everything. And he posted a meme up on Facebook, and I tagged your group in it, and there's been a few likes on the picture and a couple of laugh reacts for some reason. I don't know what that's about.
To go through, if I don't get on something right off the bat on Instagram, Facebook, it's like it gets pushed under the rug so fast because it's like, hey, you got a notification, you got no. I'm like, crap, man. But yeah, I know. It's just it's just he had a few memes pop up right afterwards with the ACR, and it kind of made me chuckle because I'm like, awesome. I'm not alone anymore.
Yeah, man, that's good. So we got a few minutes left here, and we got a few comments over. I know you can see them over there. Plains Prepper, my buddy Caleb, 30 Saber. about a conversion to 30 saber. I'm not even 100% sure what 30 saber is, Caleb.
You got me on that one. Honestly, when it comes down to a conversion, if it's something random like that and it uses somewhat of a 5.56 ish bolt, by ish I mean obviously AR type bolt, then I probably can make it work as long as it's not smaller. But usually with like a custom build like that, I would ask that they would send me ammo, magazines if required. If it's a bolt modification, I'd need the bolt and then probably a complete barrel set, and then I would go through and do my magic, and you'll have a 30 saber ACR. Like I said, I don't know much about it. Most of the time when somebody comes up, like even the 6 arc, I know nothing of that round. I know it's really awesome, and that's it. I'm supposed to get a barrel eventually soon from one of my buddies who bought a spare, and I'm gonna probably build one and do it. But again, like I said, I can't go out and go buy all these conversions and then build all these kits because, like I said, each one of them is $700, maybe more, depending if bolts. I mean, those are gold right now. So I personally on my shelf, I have a 450. I have one Grundle, maybe 2 Grundles. One of them might be in pieces. I don't know. About 6 5.56 barrels, maybe 7. I don't know. 760 by 3.9. I have a 10.5 inch sitting on the shelf. I have a 16 inch 6.8 to test with the mag or with the lower that requires those mags. I've got a few of those on there, but when it comes to like Wildcat calibers and stuff like that, I don't usually do those unless somebody specifically, they can get everything together pretty decently on that one. Sourcing up parts is pretty difficult right now. I can do it, but it's expensive quickly. And I hate giving a quote for a high price on parts because it kind of sucks when you're like, hey, my ACR was $1,200 back in the day. And you're like, how much is a 760 by 3.9 kit? And I'm like, like 12 to 1,400. And they're like, oh, okay, I buy like 2 AKs, which I don't know if that's the current conversion rate anymore. But it kills me to do that. And a lot of times it's just like, dude, I'm trying to keep the price down as much as I can for everybody's sake.
Yeah, I got invaded by my boy.
I totally get it, man.
Yeah. So we got a couple other questions or comments over here. Muddy Gary says ACR was unattractive only because of the price. The concept was awesome. Yeah, that's kind of how we started the show out. It was an awesome gun that kind of got killed by price and lazy assholes in a boardroom.
And the thing that kind of about the price, and it's kind of good that you bring that one up, is when Magpul dropped the Masada, they had a kind of a general price, but Remington had a lot of improvements that they had to put into the ACR. A lot of people want to see an ACR versus a Masada. Personally, I'm pretty sure an ACR beat a Masada because the fact is that there was more research and development into it. I mean, a Masada was developed in 2008. We're now in 2021. Even the new Huntsville ACRs were way better than the Wyndham ones, contrary to popular belief, because they did improvements on them. And I can tell you that for a fact because I've worked on both of them. And any issues that were, with the Wyndham ones, I've had the same issues with Huntsville and vice versa. But the price thing, the problem with the ACR is it's an extremely tight tolerance rifle and in pistol in certain cases. A lot of stuff's ground. There's tolerance on that I have problems getting to, so I have to send it out because I can't do it. I've even thought about that for a minute, and the tightest tolerance part on an AR-15 would be like what, the bolt head, and it's probably at the ground surfaces on the back, and then the center that's grounded within half a thou. The ACR bolt head is more ground than that is. It doesn't have the gas rings because obviously it's not, doesn't rely on that, but that's not the only part on the ACR that's ground. Almost everything round on that rifle was ground. The barrels have a tighter tolerance than AR-15 barrels. Some people ask me for specs, and I won't give out specs. That's just, I've put a lot of money developing on this. But I will tell you right now that I've had multiple barrels from the same company, and I've had to cut parts specifically for that specific barrel. You can't just swap parts back and forth. Yeah. Now, Bushmaster barrels, they were really good about keeping that tolerance, but they knew what to keep the same. So, the price on the ACR, it is, a lot of the stuff is easier to manufacture. Extruded receivers, stuff like that, that's easy. Injection molded plastic, that's easy. Once you get past the first initial hit from the mold, you're good to go. But, there are some seriously tight tolerance parts on it too, which doesn't help. But the other kicker is that it's public information now. But Magpul was taking a cut for the ACR, rightfully so. They put a lot of work into it. They should probably get a little bit out of it. That was kind of the thing that nobody really knew from the beginning. Everybody thought the ACR was just the jacked price. Well, it was basically similar to the original price, but then there was the price per rifle.
Yep, the royalties.
So,
the royalties
yeah.
will get you.
Yeah,
And that's anybody else that might be bitching about the price of things. Like you were saying with the amount of precision work that needs to go into it, the tolerances on it, stacking tolerances
oh man,
is a huge thing, especially when you're dealing with something that may have a tolerance of a half a thou or a thou or whatever. When you've got 5 parts that need to fit together and everything's got to come within 2/1000ths of an inch, people. 2/1000ths of an inch once the entire assembly is together. Stacking tolerances between each individual part, as and then the whole assembled part. That is a very real challenge that you have to do, and
you chase tolerances all day.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, hell, you could have a different temperature in your shop or different humidity, and you're going to get different tolerances. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, like I'll have the machine that I run, the beginning of the day when the coolant in the tank is nice and cool. By the end of the day, it's warmed up quite a bit, and I'll have as much as a half a thou to a thou, depending on what temperature the shop is at right now. So it is a process. It is a labor, and to add to it, when you've got an operation like yours where you have to not only chase those tolerances and deal with the stacking tolerances, but you also are dealing with the fact that you are reverse engineering things. You don't have the factory prints. You didn't invent this stuff. You are taking other people's stuff and figuring it out. Reverse engineering is another level of it's another level of complexity. So
I had an NDA with Remington, so I did get some official dimensions, some official stuff. But there was a couple times where a couple of the dimensions they gave me were, I don't know if they were just off or what, but I did them to that. I was like, all right, drill these 2 holes. Boop, there they go. Put it on the gun. I'm like, this does not fit. This doesn't fit any of the ACRs here. And I have 7 that moved through the shop because I need to have a lot of different setups just because, different trunnions from different manufacturers, because they did contract them out, They actually are different. And that's something that a lot of people also didn't know is Remington contracted most of the stuff out for the ACR. They'd have a shop do it. I'm pretty sure towards the end they were trying to get it in-house. I don't know. I've heard both sides. So, yeah, it's just the tolerances. ACR is really, really tight tolerance on a lot of parts. And some of them probably are a little overboard, but you know what? I mean, that's part of why the ACR is ridiculously a decent rifle. There's times I've taken it out to the range and I expected for it to just crash and burn, and it just kept going. Don't ever dip your rifle in the sand outside of Las Vegas. It's salt flats. So, it was raining and we jammed up the rifles. Everything there failed except the ACR. And I'm not saying that because I'm an ACR guy. I'm saying that because literally, I was pretty much expecting everything to fail. Surface rust on the rifle within probably half hour, 45 minutes after it evaporated. I had to take my rifle 100% down. And by 100%, I mean every spring, every pin. I put everything into a little tub and jumped in the shower and just sprayed everything there, dumped out what I could, hoping nothing went down the drain, did it again. And that was how I had to get the rifle unsalted. But the thing is that it was bad. I mean, this was worse than salt because the sand, but I mean, the salt would go through and just get everywhere, and then it would harden inside the rifle. So the mag catch and the bolt catch all was stuck, but it still ran.
That's amazing. That's the type of thing that you would attribute to an exaggerated anecdote. The fact that it works, and that seems to be kind of a misconception about gun buildings is the tighter the tolerances, the less reliable it is. But it really kind of comes down to where those tolerances are at.
Yeah. You add some here, take some away there.
Yeah. Right.
And I love feeling super tight tolerance guns, STIs and stuff. They feel amazing. It's just they're great shooting guns. But, you know, when it comes to the ACR, it has a lot of loose tolerances in certain areas for a reason. And I mean, that's one of them right there is, I mean, it still functions filthy. And, you know, I'm probably going to have somebody like message me like, hey, I took my gun, dipped it in mud and it didn't shoot. But, you know,
Sounds like a you problem, buddy.
yeah, I mean, I got to go find that mud then because I need to use it. But I've had a few bad days with the ACR in the mud and the rain and stuff where it just kept going. I've had days where, you know, I've ammo related that it didn't want to run. So it was actually last April. I had M193, which for whatever reason can be the make or break round for the ACR. I generally don't even stock it because I don't like the ammo in my rifle. But, you know, sometimes it runs it, sometimes it doesn't. My rifle ran 6,000 rounds of it just fine. And then out of nowhere, it wouldn't run it at all. And then it ran it, you know, 10,000 rounds later again. It's like, okay, I don't understand it. Whatever. But,
yeah, I'm sorry. I got this little.
Oh, dude, I have two boys. I totally get it.
Yes, little piglet here. He's wanting to grab at my face. Well, he's it's 10 o'clock right now, and it's usually when we. So, any parting thoughts to leave people with? Tell us where we can find your work, where we can purchase, and anything else that you got.
All right, real quick. Yeah, if you guys are interested in following me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as @Templar Precision. My website's templarprecision.com. I'm not a super internet guru, so the web isn't 100%, you know, it's functional. It's not like beautiful like, you know, certain other gun manufacturers' websites but it does its job. It gives orders that I can categorize and do that. But yeah, the two major ones that I use, I don't really do YouTube too much. And, you know, if you fire off a message, it might take me a couple minutes to get back, maybe a day, but I generally will do everything I can to get back with you on anything. Even just some kind of a random dumb question like, hey, is this a good rifle or not? You know, I do what I can to help the community. So, you know, any questions, just let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight, the people that ask questions. If you are listening to this on any of the podcasting apps or on the Think Liberty website or anywhere else, if you're listening to this after the fact, you can join the conversation too. All you have to do is show up when we do these shows, usually Friday nights, 9 p.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel, Roads to Liberty Podcast. My guest tonight was Dana from Templar Precision. Great ACR parts and ACR accessories. You can find him at templarprecision.com or at Templar Precision on Facebook and Insta. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and everybody have a wonderful evening.
Take care, guys, and thank you. I appreciate it.